I've had several of those burn victims. I've had dozens, if not hundreds, of dead people. But when I went to do a death notification to the family, I made an emotional connection with the family, so much so, and significantly enough so that later I cried. I didn't tell people about this for a long time, mostly because, you can't talk about, these emotional, like, that'll make me weak. When you're in that dark space, you just really don't see, you're missing value, you're missing worth, you're missing options, you're missing hope, you're missing an enormous amount of, and I was completely disconnected. I didn't feel like I could call my dad and say, here's what's up. That was not going to go well. There was no way I was calling my two boys. That's not an option. I don't want them to ever see their dad in this space. Working the steps, I had no other option. I worked the steps of AA diligently, which is a self-reflection. You get right with God, get right with yourself. And I realized and recognized all the things that I had done to my life. That's one of the great things about it, about that program, is you realize, holy cow, here I'm responsible for about 99% of this.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community. And now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal.
And we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide. (1937) marked the beginning of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. That year, 125 recruits graduated the OHP Academy and began serving the state. These new troopers initially met resistance from motorists who were not used to living within the bounds of traffic regulations. But by promoting a standard of professionalism and civility, they quickly gained a reputation as humble servants. Like every large law enforcement agency, the OHP has experienced its share of trauma, tragic history, and dark days. May 26, 1978 would be the darkest day for the OHP. 34 days earlier, 2 convicted murderers tunneled out of the Oklahoma State Prison, leading to a manhunt spanning Oklahoma, Texas, and Alabama, before ultimately ending in Bryan County, Oklahoma. Troopers Billy Young and Houston Pappy Summers were ambushed and killed while confronting the fugitives. The suspects fled and eventually crossed paths with Lieutenant Pat Grimes and Lieutenant Hoyt Hughes. Another deadly gunfight ensued, killing Lieutenant Grimes. Lieutenant Hughes was critically wounded, but fought back and killed one of the fugitives. Seconds later, the other suspect was killed, and that nightmare was over. Sadly, however, the ripple effect of trauma was just beginning. The department and the state were grieving, and the lasting effects of that day would be felt for generations. Today's guest knows all too well how this noble profession giveth and taketh away, especially over time. We are honored to sit with a man who spent 25 years serving the state of Oklahoma. He has continued his commitment to service in a different capacity, now dedicating his life to helping officers and their families.
Brad, welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Joe. Great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me in.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to with you, but first I want to welcome on co-host Kent. He's back with me.
I'm back.
We haven't fired him yet. We have to have that voice on. Also, Courtney Runnels finally got her to the mic. She was supposed to be in the ATO Counselor Roundtable, didn't make it, but we got her now. Can you tell the listener a little bit about yourself?
Good morning. Thanks for having me finally. So I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor. I work for Grand Prairie Police Department by day, and I'm an ATO counselor by night. So at Grand Prairie, I run our mental health program. We have a co-responder unit, and then we also recently added the wellness arm to that team. So my partner in crime, Emily Maurick, is now running that unit and making it super successful.
I was wondering if she was going to come today and sit in.
You didn't ask.
Well,
I would have brought her easily.
Standing invite.
Oh, well, I'm going to get in trouble now. I didn't know it was a standing invite, so sorry.
No, go back and read your text. I asked for you to bring her.
No, definitely not there.
Sorry, Emily. It's just she trying to hog the spotlight. Sorry.
She's a rock star, for sure.
She's a hoot.
Yeah, she's awesome. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. And you, like I said, you are one of our ATL counselors, and you've been doing that for about a little over a year now.
Yeah, you guys finally added me a year ago. I was doing it pro bono before that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were. And you did it. You've still done a lot of things pro bono, even like the psych eds. We've had you come in on, and, and then we're closing in on the year anniversary of the Officer Burke's murder. And I have to say that you came in, that happened on a Thursday. You were there Friday, Saturday, and then you actually came in on the holiday on that Monday to see our people. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's my favorite thing to do ever is help first responders. So always happy to do that.
Well, we're praying we don't have to deal with something like that again anytime soon. But it's nice to know that we have people like you that are here for us.
Always.
So. All right. Well, we're going to get into Brad. You have a lot. There's a lot of layers to your story, and from where you began and to what you're doing now. But we're going to start about where you grew up, early home life.
You know, that's a great question. It's a great part of my story. I grew up a farm kid. Actually, I grew up a dairy kid. I grew up working my ass off, and loved it. Loved working with my dad. Great dude. One of the greatest guys that I know still. He was the best man in my wedding. That was how close we were. Grew up a farm kid, but I grew up an adopted kid. So this may come up later in our story, but I'll bring it up now. I'm an ACIS score. Are you all familiar with ACIS? ACIS Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. I would encourage anybody to check that out and find out. It's an interesting part, and we can talk about this later because it comes up later in my story. But I'm an ACIS score of 0, which is really low. Most first responders, it's a 0 to 10 score. Most first responders are somewhere 4 to 7. And so 0 means you've had a really great childhood, with the exception of one thing, which is I'm an adopted kid. So my dad had 3 girls, and he didn't want to try for a boy, so he chose adoption. So I was an adopted kid, which I had an awesome, wonderful childhood. But what plays into this later is that I came to believe that at any point people could give me away or get rid of me. So I had this kind of underlying theme that I found out later in life. Matter of fact, in retirement, that, hey, here's how you're living your life. Here's how your values are working against you. And here's how your belief structure is off a little bit. But for the most part, my childhood was awesome. Great dad, great parents. 2 of my sisters were awesome. One of them's a little off. Courtney, is that correct language?
Perfect.
Your body language. Your body language.
I thought you were going to get into the dairy portion, but we're going to go there.
A little off. Wow.
2 out of 3 is not bad.
Yeah.
2 out of isn't that a song? Isn't there a song? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
The childhood itself was awesome. I went through. I wasn't around alcohol. Part of my story is an alcohol story. An alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic. I wasn't around alcohol. Never took my first drink till I was 18 years old. And I just really had a great life. I moved on to college, and my first semester at Oklahoma State University, I took an ag econ class and figured out that there was no way possible I could go back and farm with my dad without going into grave debt. So I had to choose something else. I started pursuing another angle. When I asked my dad about this, he said, sounds to me like you need to hit your knees. We were a very spiritual family. Started praying about it. This, all of a sudden, there's a lot of spiritual context to my getting on the Oklahoma High Patrol. But God started putting troopers in my path. In fact, one of the days I was actually, we didn't go to town. We didn't go to town to eat out ever. We live 15 miles from Shattuck, Oklahoma, which is a little pissant town in western Oklahoma. It's amazing. People are wonderful. And we never went to town for dinner, lunch, anything. And my dad up one day says, let's go to town and grab a burger, which was like just unheard of. So we drive to town and we're sitting in a little restaurant, and in walks about 30 troopers, comes in and sits down. And that was the spiritual message for me, because I had actually prayed, God, if this is where you want me to go, make it obvious. And he did. So I pursued Oklahoma Highway Patrol based upon that. Got in my first time, 3,600 applicants for a 33 man, woman class. And I don't know how I did it. That had to have been spiritual as well, because I'm not a blue blood family, never been in law enforcement. So that was a lot of my childhood upbringing. Kind of brings us up to Oklahoma Highway Patrol.
What attracted you most about that uniform and that department?
Such a great question. The troopers in the law enforcement arena just held themselves to a much different. As a teenager, I had a couple run-ins with the law, got a couple tickets, I never officially got arrested. There's a story behind that. But I noticed in that event I got hauled in. There was a group of us got hauled into the police station. And when the trooper walked in, everybody in that room, including the local law enforcement and deputies, turned their head, and the way they looked at him, like, that is unique. That I don't know who that guy is,
but he's impressive.
He's impressive. He holds something different. So that was a pretty impressive part of looking at, if I'm going to do something, then do something worthy, do something notable, and strive for, there's Oklahoma Highway Patrol is not the only one. I'm just saying my viewpoint. But there's a lot of agencies out here that hold themselves to a really high standard. So you're talking about rural Oklahoma. Those local law enforcement agencies are undertrained, undermanned, understaffed. But you look at a trooper and they just hold themselves in Oklahoma. They just hold themselves a little bit differently. And I like that guy.
Are those the guys that go with the Oklahoma football team when they come down here?
Yes.
There's a real small trooper that walks with Bob Stoops for years. He was a massive man.
And that guy's name is Brian Orr. If you'll Google Brian Orr tackle, where he did he actually played football. I think he played at UCO.
He looks like he could play today.
He was a linebacker and actually got to execute linebacker duties in Oklahoma Highway Patrol uniform when a fan rushed the field. Hat on, mind you.
Of course.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
In the handbook.
You could Google that. It's still floating around the internet. It is one of the best tackles.
Great form.
Great form. Yeah. Leaving the feet, led with the shoulder. Just, yeah.
Would not get a targeting call, but
nobody
the form
cared.
was that good.
Nobody cared. And any complaints, here's the governor's phone number. That's how that goes.
That uniform is impressive. It's a pretty decent uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a lot of the backstory for Oklahoma Highway Patrol as a kid. And then when all that transpired, I had no real aspirations. I still wanted to be a dairy kid, a farm kid. I still wanted to work with my dad. But I was like, those guys are different. My local trooper, the guy in my hometown, his name was Alan Nixon. Shout out to Alan. Alan just held himself differently. He held him to a different standard. He carried himself differently. He was nice, super nice all the time. But you knew
He'd open a can.
he
if need
had
be.
not nice in his back pocket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
So I wanted a little bit of backstory on that department agency. What is the size?
I think we're right at 900.
Okay.
Currently, I don't know. I've been retired since 2018, but I think we're right about 900. Yep. Formed in 1937 as initially a traffic unit agency and now has morphed into a pretty multifaceted, mostly assist agency, but we have all waterways, all turnpikes, capital, protection, bomb squad, SWAT, riot. Still, most of that is in assist agency mode. So most of our TAC team calls are, assisting rural departments with high risk warrant service or manhunts, things like that.
I would imagine a lot of disaster.
A lot of
relief
disaster. I always kept a bag in my trunk 3 days.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many times I was called and said, "You're."
Is that your go bag?
It was a go bag. Yeah, mostly underwear and socks,
Absolutely.
toothbrush,
Ready for work.
and a spare uniform because
And a hat.
you would go to a lot of tornado stuff.
Yeah.
a lot of May 3rd. I think it was gone 5 days.
Did you guys have a backup hat just in case?
No.
Twister comes through and grabs that hat. You're in trouble.
Every good trooper has a backup hat somewhere. So you had a straw and a felt. The felts were harder to come by, but everybody has spare straw.
In Oklahoma, there's a lot of reservation police forces. How did y'all work with them, and how does that dynamic work?
So you're going to quickly get into something that I start diminishing my knowledge of because that's changed just a few years ago with the McGirt case. But prior to that, we worked really well. But it was a pretty odd standard. So if it was native. A native crime on a native crime, we couldn't do anything about it. It was a native crime against a white person, we couldn't do anything about it. But if it was a white person against a native, it was ours. Specifically, like if a car crash on a reservation, if it was white, we'd go work it. If it was native, we couldn't work it. It got really blurry fast.
Yeah,
it got really blurry fast. And part of the inherent problem with Oklahoma is there's no clear defines like this area is native. It all runs odd, like across the street, that's native. This is state. Then go down 200 yards. Both sides are native. Go 200 yards. Both sides are state. It gets really blurry fast. Supreme Court case came back later. This was probably mid 2000s. Supreme Court case came out and really had it was based out of Adair County and actually said you have no excuse not to know. So then the burden falls on the trooper to know what's native land and what's not. And if you make a arrest on a native, then you got a use of force problem. You got a Fourth Amendment issue, and unbeknownst, you could do it just accidentally. You just trip into it and like, oh shit, I had no idea that I was on native land. Excuse me, but a native on state land obviously is state law enforcement, but a native on native land can't touch it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how that dynamic worked, good or bad,
Yeah.
or a lot of blurred lines. It sounds like so. Like the city cops too. They have the same. Is it a similar dynamic? Do you know of?
Well, yes. That becomes a sovereign nation issue. The whole issue. So it wouldn't matter what agency. It would be city, county, state. But McGirt case happened late 20. Again, I've been retired too long, but McGirt happened, and that's where the Supreme Court came and said you're trying natives improperly. So all the cases for natives had to go back through. They dismissed them all So some of these people were in jail. Some of these people, and these were like pedophiles and murderers. They had to release them and retry them in a federal court. The U.S. Marshals encumbered most of the burden of that. So now, this is a really long version to answer your question. Now,
No, I like it.
most of those, like what I heard the other day, I was talking to, somehow this came up organically, oddly enough. Like the troopers now are commissioned through a variety of different agencies. So they're dual commissioned on agency or on native lands, I believe. Again, I'm speaking kind of outside my head here, but this is what I've heard. So they're holding like 6, 7, 8, 9 commissions so that they can cover all the native lands within their respective assigned area, county or dual counties, whatever that is. So they're cross commissioning so that, it's a matter of protection for that law enforcement officer, but it's also so that you can get it right. If you're not having to call BIA and which they're short staffed. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's
Yeah.
something we don't worry about that here.
Oh, it's a
And
mess.
It's
a mess. It's pretty complicated.
Speaking of Oklahoma being a mess, did they just take a bag of Scrabble tiles to name these cities over there? Like, what's going on with just the strangest names of cities? And you're like, what? Like, that isn't even a word. How did
Didn't I hear you just say you're from Shirt?
Shirts? It's
Shirts?
German, and yes, it's as crazy as it gets, right? But like Enid, what is an Enid?
Oddly enough, I was the commander. That was my last command spot. Was in Enid. There's an Air Force base. There's a military Air Force base in Enid. But yes, it is. It is cultural Scrabble. So the land run that happened, oh gosh, you can put me on the spot. What was the land run? Was in 1890 something. This was a mass group of vastly different cultural people that stood on a line and said, as fast as you can, go grab you a piece of land, and they planted
The Oklahoma Cheaters. The
the
Sooners.
Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm an Oklahoma State fan. That's we can go deep
Bedlam.
dive into
Bedlam.
the true nature of a schooner. If you left early, they had authorization to shoot you on sight and kill you and just walk away. So the military, if they found you cheating, they would shoot you. But then the land run happened, and so you've got Germans and Swiss and people from all over the world that went and grabbed land. So you've got all these different cultures around Oklahoma. That's why you get a lot of the different names, as well as native. So you have a culmination of, well, there's the 5 tribes that most people know of, and then there's another 20, 30 tribes that most people never hear. I'm Osage and Pawnee mix, but you've got Sac and Fox and Choctaw. I mean, so now you've got a smattering of those names of communities, and they're Tom. We have a Tom, Oklahoma. So just to simplify it down all the way to Kenosha.
Yeah, I've heard of Kenosha.
Yeah, it just.
Joe, you ever heard of Choctaw?
Yeah. Actually,
He's been to Windstar
I
every once in a while.
gambled there. So Osage. So I just recently saw a movie, the Flowers of the
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
So what'd you think of that?
So I read the book first. The movie matches pretty closely. The book is probably, I would say, 10 times darker.
That's a pretty dark movie.
The Killers of the Flower Moon movie, they romanticize it a little bit as compared to the book. It's a dark movie. It was so dark I had to put it, and I'm a reader. There were several times I had to put it down and walk away. Like I got to stop and just.
I thought the movie.
It's a
long.
really dark.
It's a long movie, man.
It's a really dark spot in Oklahoma's history that nobody talks about. Yeah,
that was a big movie. I thought it was long. It was a long movie, but that was a fascinating look at that time in Oklahoma. Because you're right, that's not.
Yeah,
you're not gonna find that in history books. And
the premise for the listeners, the premise of the story is that Osage, as a nation, was moved to a specific area of northeast north central Oklahoma, which is Osage County, kind of Tulsa area. And then later they were found that it had oil like crazy underneath it. And Osage had specific head rights, so it was part of their culture that there was this given area that was yours or your family's. And the capitalistic nature of that time said, we're going to take that from you. And so what was happening was you had these people who were non-native show up and say, I'm going to be your.
They were marrying them. Yeah.
Yeah. They were assigned by the court. The court was assigning, like, let's say Tim. Let's say, Tim, you're in charge of Brad's head right. So he would get all the money, and he would dispense me an allowance for a certain amount of money, but the large majority of the money was going to Tim. This was court ordained. It was a whole it was a shyster business, and
a lot of murders.
Because of it. When people stood up, like you just died, or when the marriage was completed, then you no longer needed the wife. You could just get rid of her. That's the premise of the movie.
Man, I love it. I bet you didn't think you were gonna come in here and talk about.
Oh no, this is awesome.
No.
This is awesome.
Well,
arguably, the book talks about that's the foundation of the FBI. It goes into great detail about. Trying to remember Leonardo's character name, but he in the book they talk about how really that is the beginnings of some of the thoughts behind FBI.
It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, if you're just tuning in, yes, this is still ATO Bridging the Divide. It's a first responder podcast, but we are talking about some
movie critiques.
Great Oklahoma history. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to talk.
Back on track, guys.
No, I'm glad we got into that.
Speaking of law enforcement.
Yeah. So, what was the culture then in the department when you joined? What was it known for? Other than looking good in uniform,
it was very much known for we will take care of you, not just help you. We'll take care of you. We with a lot of respect, a lot of don't cross. If you need help when we show up, we'll take care of it. It was, again, we were an assist agency. That's one of the reasons, and they still don't have cages in cars. That's the reason nobody has cages in cars as a trooper. Because we're an assist agency. So we have motorist assist far outweighs any arrests we do. So we're giving people rides to get gas. We're giving people rides, across whatever. That's their premise behind no cages.
A lot of accidents.
A lot of accidents. A lot of crashes. Their primary unit is road enforcement and road protection. So that's the accident enforcement, education, safety, but along the way, if you got trouble, so if you go back and a trooper shows up, you things are going to get finished really quickly, one way or the other.
But y'all do have an investigative arm, like a CID, and you have that. Okay.
We do that actually. I got to watch that morph into its being. So we have a criminal interdiction unit that ended up resulting in some investigative work and shootings. We had partnered with Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation to do a lot of our shootings, and that morphed into later, because of the complications of court and all of it morphed into doing our own investigation. So I got to watch this through my career of seeing all the reasons behind we just need to start our own, and now we have our own really robust internal investigative unit. That's Troop Z.
That sounds badass.
It is badass.
Troop Z.
Yeah. Troop Z encumbers a lot. I actually we'll get into my career in a minute, but I got to create a troop. I got to be able to create emergency services unit, which is, there's only been probably like 5 troops created since like 1970. I got to do one of those. I got to be a part of one of those.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what are some of the units that you worked? You started off basic trooper in it out there, right?
So there's 13 field troops, which is what the Oklahoma Highway Patrol is known for, like field trooper, work in the field, connecting with the community. There's 13 of those all across the state. Through my career, I was assigned to 2 different. So my first one was Troop L, which is up in northeastern Oklahoma. So I basically had Grand Lake. If you have any perspective geographically, I was Grand Lake to the Illinois River. I was on the Arkansas line. That was my first assignment. There's a lot of bad guys over there. It was crazy. It was a rodeo, fighting, chasing, shooting, gouging. It was a lot. Because the bad guys would jump back and forth from Arkansas to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And Missouri. We had the Missouri corner. Yeah.
So what are some of the units that you worked on? Favorite and least favorite?
So from Troop L, I went to Troop J, which is Enid. The headquarters is based out of Enid, but Troop J. But I lived. Troop J extends almost down to Oklahoma City, so I lived about 30 minutes from Oklahoma City. But our headquarters, people could work out of headquarters as long as I think it used to be, I don't know if it still is, but it was 45 nautical miles from headquarters. Well, I fell within that, so I could work out of headquarters unit about any unit, and that I didn't have enough foresight to see that. I lucked into that. But what that did for me was I got to have an absolute great career, because from Troop J, I went to headquarters and I was assigned to SWAT. I was we call it tactical team. I was assigned to full-time bomb squad, full-time special operations, full-time Homeland Security, a turnpike assignment. Those were, and then started my promotion process internally with it. Probably my favorite assignment was still full-time TAC team. I love the camaraderie of it. I love the adrenaline is a part of it, but you just have this connection with guys that you just have a camaraderie there that is really it's a family. Yeah, it's a family. And then wellness, peer support team. I had command of peer support team as well. So
did you create that team?
So the peer support team I didn't create, but I did grow it. So there was a shout out to Terry Morris. We had a lieutenant who was a one-man band. This was back in the late 90s. This was formulated from Murrah. So Murrah building bombing in 1995, Terry Morris became the peer support guy, Lone Ranger peer support guy for the entire state. So
he had his hands full at that time.
I don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
He did it with a cigar in his mouth. I know that. You never found that guy without a cigar in his mouth. He was a gruff, no nonsense, straight talk, straight shooter, absolutely great human being. But it ate him up. It got him, physically, health wise. He would drive 3 hours to a shooting call for an outside agency, drive another 2 hours to another shooting for an outside agency, and then be home by 6 a.m., take a shower, and be headed to do his peer support work by 8. I don't know how he did it. So we came alongside, a friend of mine and I came alongside him and added 2 members to the peer team. And then he hung it up. He said, "It's yours." And a buddy of mine named Gary, he and I grew that team. When I retired, it was somewhere around 60. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 60-ish peer team members, both commissioned and non. We had some civilians on, about 20 civilians on our peer support team.
What got you involved in that, though? I mean, what drew you to that? I mean, because wellness and peer support wasn't really a thing so much, and there's a movement now that we're seeing, but then what got you into that?
So I really had a pretty rough career early on. I didn't know it. There's a lot of aspects of my career that I didn't realize had a detrimental impact until even my retirement. Like the number of times people tried to kill me, I didn't realize that was that big a deal until my retirement. I just thought that's just part of being a trooper. I mean, two different times people showed up on my door wanting to kill me. I mean, this is my home. I'm going to kick your ass and send you on your way. And, we can talk tomorrow. Let's go have breakfast. This is, now you look back on that and think, and these conversations, and as I teach, I talk a lot about this is the way we live our life. We just assume this is normal. It's not normal. And so you have that. If we'll park that over there for a minute. And then in 1999, I lost a dear friend, Rocky Eels, to a SWAT mission that I was not on. So I carried survivor guilt. I didn't even think I could talk about that because I wasn't on the operation, but I was a sniper at the time. They didn't deploy snipers. So I thought if I'd have been there, he would be alive. And I carried a lot of that survivor guilt for a really long time, thinking that I couldn't even talk about it. So then when I did, some of our amazing therapists, I start having some real issues, significant enough that I've got a TAC team leader that sets me down and say, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to get your shit right. And that's almost an exact quote. So I go see a therapist and I'm like, oh, I do have some crazy things going on. I have had a pretty crazy career, and you start unpacking some of that. So I'm fast forwarding through a lot of that, but to answer your question, I, in about 2006, 5-6, I'm interacting with some therapists and getting EMDR, and I'm like, oh, this shit's awesome. This is amazing. Wow, I can sleep. I can function without, some of this shit. I'm not angry. I'm not yelling at everybody. And that goes to, well, I need to spread the message. I need to talk about this. I need to tell other people. I mean, because those same guys that I'm talking to, I went home and yelled at my right. Yeah, me too. That whole thing. Now you have this different message of, hey, Courtney did EMDR on me and I'm not yelling anymore. I'm not mad. Maybe you should do the same thing. And so it became that, which kind of morphed into seeing Terry. I understood Terry more now. I'm like, I see what Terry's talking about. He wasn't full of shit. And that's when I came alongside Terry and just said, I want to help you. Like, how can I be helpful to this mission that you're on? And he's like, you need to go get, back then it was CISM was the premise of peer support. We know that to not be accurate now, but CISM's great. I'm a CISM instructor, but it's not everything you need to be a peer support person.
Can you explain that to the listener that may not know what this is? It is?
Sure. So CISM is a crisis intervention technique that's been around for several decades. It was invented by a guy named Jeff. I just went blank on his Jeff Mitchell. He's a fire guy actually, and created he went on to get his master's degree in mental health and created an intervention model for first responders. Now it's worldwide. It's under the umbrella of International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, which is ICISF in umbrella, and it's known worldwide. This has been deployed all over the world, but to this crisis intervention model, but critical incident stress management as an intervention model does several things. There's actually 7 different items that you can use within the CISM, but what it's most known for is debriefs. So these debriefs that you come together and have a conversation. Most cops and firefighters and the badasses are like, well, fuck that. Can I cuss on here?
Well,
you
got the explicit tag. No, we have a blanket explicit tag. You can say whatever you want.
Go ahead and start over.
Yeah.
I was born in Chateau, Oklahoma.
So you talked a lot about your agency being the assist agency, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of well received in a lot of law enforcement. But did that transition into assisting one another and the whole mental health piece? Was that received early on, or was that something that grew later in your career?
The such a great question.
Thank you.
I'll give you there's that humility. I'll answer that by starting with a story of when I broke in. So my first meeting with a lieutenant, green to the gills, new, fresh out of patrol school. My break-in partner, who's, shout out to Scotty, he is absolutely an amazing human being. Did amazing work training me into the person I am today, or not. The meeting with that lieutenant went like this. He sat down and said, "This job is going to get really hard, really fast. If it gets too tough, you got two options: go get something to drink, and go get a girlfriend." He knew I was married. He knew I was married at the time. And he said, if it gets really, really tough, just go find another girlfriend. That was 1992. That was the model.
Sure.
And that was the conversation that was given to me on how to handle a really tough career.
Which is pretty standard across the board, honestly.
Gordon Graham says if it's predictable, it's preventable. So we knew in 1992 that this job is really, really hard. We just didn't have really good options. We didn't have solutions. So I think today we know this career is going to be inordinately hard and difficult on the body, on the relationships, on the person. And now we're offering solutions, one of them being this podcast, which is how you have options out here to do positive things for your mental, emotional, relational, physical health, as opposed to choosing a girlfriend. So with that being said, my break-in partner, we left out of there. He said, everything that guy said, get rid of about 90% of it. I'll take care of you. And what he did do was have these really deep conversations about life and relationship. That was my partner. That was my true partner. And he said, life's going to get really hard for you. This is not blowing smoke. This is going to be a hard career, but you're going to have a blast, which he was right on both accounts.
So you said that you felt safe enough after you went to counseling to spread the word. Mm-hmm. Would you attribute some of that to your break-in partner and him kind of normalizing it early on in your career?
100%. Yeah. He really did preach this, have a conversation. Not everybody's going to be up for that. But I still call him on a regular basis. I have different people in my corner now today that I call and say, I'm having a pretty shitty day. That's, PTSD is another, award that I carry in my bank. So I have a PTSD award that I carry. But
it's on your bingo card.
It is on my bingo card. Alcohol, depression, suicide ideation, and PTSD are all on my bingo card. So PTSD is a manageable diagnosis, so I know now that there's certain things that if I'm having things, I have tools, meditation, mindfulness, exercise, but also people in my corner that I can say, I need a minute. I don't need a response. I just need a minute. And then I unpack this up to and including professional, which is therapeutic work, which I can call a buddy and say, I need a session. I need to come in. I need a voodoo EMDR. Sorry. I need an EMDR session. That hasn't been even that long ago, probably 6-8 months ago. I called and said, I need an EMDR session on this. You kind of get to where you can recognize that part. You're like, I won't pretend that I know all the inner workings of therapy. Obviously you all are amazingly trained. But you start to get
Courtney,
to
not us. Yeah.
Well, Joe, really.
Yeah,
Courtney.
No.
Yeah. I glanced at no, Courtney's amazing. And if I were down here, I'd probably call Courtney and say,
one of the best.
I need a voodoo session. Can I get in, squeeze me in? And, we come in and voodoo it out. And it's freaking so weird how it works too. Cause what I went in there for, it was not what I came out with. It happens every time. But does that answer your question?
It does, and it's a testament to the maintenance. I think a lot of times we seek help in the crisis, but we don't look at just the maintenance aspect of being in tune to, hey, you know what, 6 months later, I'm struggling. Maybe I just need to go in for one session. So,
that is a point that is missed within this culture and community so often, because the maintenance of our physical upkeep, most of us are on that. Like, if I want to stay in shape, I've got to work at it every day. But if I want to stay in mental health shape, like, we don't.
right.
So there's aspects of that we can cross over and say, if you want to stay mentally healthy, there's things you got to do every day. There's things that you need to do maybe once a week. Once a week you need to go do X, or once a month you need to go, once every 6 months you need to go see Courtney. And just making sure you're having this maintenance piece for, just like you are your mental health, your physical health, medically.
Shooting. Yeah, hell,
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
if their scores are lacking, they'll get out there and practice.
Perishable skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I think it's a great point.
So I want to talk about something you've PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
It started somewhere. So what is some of the, I know you had a lot of exposure to trauma, and it's a long career, but what are some of the ones that, going back, you can look at, go, man, that really stuck with me, and that kind of maybe helped set me on a path?
The one that probably is most notable and easy to relate to is there's a lot of these things that a lot of cool stories, a lot of crazy stories, but one was really simple. It was a crash where a older black gentleman, we believe him to have had a heart attack. He had a heart attack, ran off into a ravine, and was burned up. The small pickup that he was driving caught on fire, and then it burned him up. And I helped get him. It's a rural part of Oklahoma, so I was helping them get him out and get, it was just amazingly gross. That's not that big a deal. I've had several of those burned victims. I've had dozens, if not hundreds, of dead people. But when I went to do a death notification to the family, I made an emotional connection with the family, so much so, and significantly enough so that later I cried. I didn't tell people about this for a long time, mostly because, you can't talk about, these emotional, like, that'll make me weak. But I made an emotional connection with that family. They were so pure. They were so sweet. They were such an amazing family. So my death notification culminated into really connecting hard with the family. They thanked me in the newspaper. It was an incredible connection that I stayed with them. I would see them around town, like, hey, how are you doing? It would be hugs. So they became connected. That became a visual. Now the burned body now became an embedded visual representation, which we know is PTSD. Correct me if I'm wrong here, if I misstep on any PTSD, but now you go past 30 days into years of, I still see this image. And if I talk about him, and as I sit here, I'll pause for a minute. And so oftentimes, used to, when I'd tell this story, I would smell him. The connection would be so embedded that I could smell the burned body. It didn't matter. Years was disconnect. I would have that connection. So that's one.
And that is from you believe that it was the connection you made with the family, and you absorbed all that grief that they were feeling. You became then a part of that family in some way.
I did. I will forever be connected with them. Yeah. I don't know where they are today. I haven't seen them in, 20 years. But I will forever, there's a ridiculous energy on this planet that connects you and ties you in with people, and I will forever be connected with them. I don't know where they are today, what was the early part of your question I was going to speak to? But the connection on that really tie in, and it can happen. It can happen that fast. One of the other connections I made was I had a dual fatality on a dad and a daughter. He was teaching his daughter how to drive a Road King motorcycle, and they met a semi trailer on a curve. They met a tractor trailer, big semi on a curve, and she couldn't handle the suction of the resistance of the suction of the the semi as they were meeting, and it sucked them right into the rear tandems of the tractor of the trailer. Killed him immediately. She was fighting for life. Another visual. I don't want to get grotesque here, but she was, on the ground naked while they were working on her. That visual image stuck with me, but the connection wasn't until I went to the wallet. I had such a crazy scene going. This was my scene. I had 2 choppers on the ground. I had fire everywhere. I had roadblocked. I was moving. DOT was helping me. I was facilitating this chaos of a scene, and managing like a rock star. I'm like, yeah. So any information I would just throw it in my front seat. I'll get to that later. I was grabbing up stuff, and so later everybody was gone. It was just me on the side of the road, my patrol car, going through different, insurance pieces, registration, identification, and the dad's wallet. Opened up the dad's wallet, and inside it immediately was a picture of the family, and it was dad, mom, and all girls. And I immediately made a connection to my family. So I have 3 older sisters, and the car started spinning. I'm like, what is going on? So I get out to get a breath of fresh air. I'm lightheaded. Nobody's around. I walk to my trunk and I lean over my trunk, and I never threw up, but I was nauseous. I'm like, this is what the fuck? Like, this is, I've done dozens of these scenes, like these crazy, it's not any of that. It's not this. It is. So the connection was this, that could be me. I don't know, therapeutically wise, professional wise, I don't know where you make this connection, but this is me saying, relating to that, losing a sister. She was the youngest. She was the baby. She was 18, of 5 daughters. And if you fast forward to, they were out of Missouri. Fast forward to the Missouri trooper. We connected to a Missouri trooper. They were out of Springfield, Missouri. The trooper, usually we get a note back on a computer saying, hey, notification's been done. This trooper called me. He said, that is far and away the hardest death notification I've ever done in my life. Thanks for nothing, asshole. Mm-hmm. So I knew the family itself, he just validated everything I knew about how good and whole this family was in that picture. Like, yeah, and that became embedded. That became imprinted on me, to later. And it was just simple. I've done, dozens of those. Death is a normal thing, and not every death sticks with you or me. Not every death, you had weird deaths. It's no big deal. It's just part of the job. But every once in a while, most of us out here, every once in a while, you have a death that really connects in, ties in. You're like, ooh.
I think we normalize the abnormal, right? So death being normal shouldn't be normal to anybody, but it's normal to you guys. And we don't do enough education on trauma. I think it's a testament to how powerful the brain is, and that trauma stores through all 5 senses. Mm-hmm. And whether or not we're paying attention, our brain is. And so in the midst of crisis, you guys are busy, you're focused on a million other things, but your brain's taking in all that sensory data. And when it had time to calm down in both of your stories is when that trauma started to embed through your senses. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you notice it is because you're able to make a personal connection. But the reality is it's still there, even if we don't notice it. And even if we don't make that personal connection, it's still hanging out. Right. And it's that cumulative trauma, right? Why did this one bother me? Because this is the one that bothered me. Right. And so I hear that so many times when people come in. I've done so many of these and I don't know why this one bothers me. And my answer is because we're okay until we're not.
Right.
And so, I think that we really need to do a better job of explaining the brain and how trauma stores in the brain so that we don't feel like we're abnormal in our normal responses to an incident such as that.
Right. I think the theory that we build in ourselves or maybe is passed on from our counterparts or superiors, maybe not superiors, but our mentors, that's going to be okay. until it's not. I think we miss that a lot. That message of there's a chance somewhere in here you're going to have something go off the rails. But you can't go through this career without some of those.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
There's 100% chance that you're going to be changed in some form or fashion. I mean, I think all of us at this table are different than we were when we started our career. And it doesn't mean it's all bad, but we're different.
I'll offer one more up. I've got several, but I'll this one's pretty unique. I had it was a very simple crash, DUI crash. An RV ran off the road, virtually got stuck. He wasn't even really a crash. They called me and said, "Hey, you have a one vehicle crash down on US 412." I respond. When I get there, there's an older gentleman who's somewhat disabled, and then a lady, older lady with him, and they'd come up with this scheme. He was very romantically inclined. They were not married. They weren't even dating. They had just gotten to know each other, and they decided to take this trip. And it turns out she didn't want to sleep with him, and he did not respond well to that. He wasn't ugly, but it was rejection, and consequently they were at the motel together. He goes out and buys a couple bottles and gets hammered drunk. And he's mad and he's going to drive him home. And this was, early evening, but it was coming on dark, and runs off the road. She gets really, really scared because he's not driving well. They're going to crash. They get into an argument and he runs off the road and gets stuck. Okay. No big deal. Turns out he's a Vietnam veteran, honorable veteran, notable, commended veteran. And I try every way possible to not take him to jail. Can I get you it left me with no other options. I get her to a hotel. He doesn't have hardly any money. He's broke. I see what he's doing. He's lonely. He's a lonely guy seeking a romantic endeavor with a woman. She's really nice. They're both amazingly nice people. So what this culminates into is I end up having to take him to jail in his wheelchair because I'm left with no other option. I literally I'm out of options, and he's drunk. He's not safe. He's not even safe to himself. I can't take him to a motel. I'm going to have to take him to a drunk tank. And this is not actually what happened, but figuratively in my mind, I parked this, that I took him in a wheelchair and dumped him in the drunk tank and pulled the wheelchair out. Now, this was a moral injury because I walked out, got in my car, and I sat there and cried for about 5 minutes. Like, what did I just do? Like, what just happened? Now, I didn't tell anybody about that for a long time. I told him about the call, but I didn't tell him about the impact that had on me. So later, when I'm talking about this simple thing really wounded me very deeply. And I did not think, it's one of those things you're like, what the fuck? Like, that's just a normal day. That's just a normal doing business. He put himself in it. You can blame him. Okay. Yeah, you can. He did all that, but I still had to take him, a decorated Vietnam veteran. I had to put him in a drunk tank over him trying to be romantic, of him being lonely. That's what it culminated into. That's another one those are three very significant ones that really got embedded in me, that I didn't realize how deeply wounded, how much that hurt my heart and my soul until years later. Does that answer your question on the kind of the PTSD piece?
Well, and thanks for sharing that. It's important to get it out there that it's not going to be every car crash and dead body that you see, right? It's the culmination of things, and it's the little connections sometimes that you make. One of the key components of our wellness unit is the checkpoint model. And I get tasked oftentimes with contacting officers that work evenings or late nights. They're younger officers. And we try to tell them, I try to ask them, like, hey, I got a notification that you went to a nasty call, and most of it is involving death of some sort. So when we talk to them, we're trying to say, hey, I got a notification you went on this call. And they're like, the dead guy? And I'm like, yeah, tell me what happened on that one. And they're like, man, I can't really remember. I've had 3 or 4 other ones since then. Mm-hmm. And so I start to tell them, like what you were saying, it's not normal, the stuff we see, right? You shouldn't be exposed to that much death. But that's part of what we ingest as police officers. And again, it's mostly the younger officers. They're in patrol. They're working late nights. They're working evenings. You don't find a whole lot of dead people in the middle of the day, right? That's just not how life works. You know, you find people when you get home from work or in the middle of the night when things happen like that in sleep. But you mentioned you can absorb some of it, right? You can take some of it. I tell these younger officers, I'm like, we all have a box. And your box gets stuff put into it, and eventually it's going to overflow. And you don't get to control when. You don't get to control what happens after that happens. So I try to tell everybody, have a relationship with a therapist before your box overflows,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because once you're in that state and you're struggling and basically trying to stay above water, that's not when you want to try to talk to somebody, right? That's when you need to have that established already. And I'll give it to these younger officers. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or generational thing, but a lot of them tell me, hey, I've already got a therapist. Like, I talked to somebody already. And some of them are like, I talked to my wife or my spouse or my boyfriend. Or it's really interesting that these younger officers already have a better grasp on it. And I credit a lot of that to our academy and the teaching that they do out there. Our wellness unit goes out there and talks to those guys. But it's just strange how you can go through so much stuff that should cause trauma, and it just you pack that away and you're good with it. But there's one little thing about a situation that sticks with you for the rest of your life, and you really try to get rid of it. And the EMDR, I'm right there with you. I'm listening to your story. I'm like, man, he's parallel, very much. But if we don't get the message out there that it's available and that it helps,
right?
What do we do? So you said when you went through it, you were like, hey, I got to tell everybody about this, right? I told Joe I'm the vegan CrossFitter, right? Yeah. I got to tell you how great being a vegan is and how awesome CrossFit is, but it's all about therapy. And so I talk more about that. And I'm like, this is such a weird thing for me to talk about, but if I don't talk about it, I kind of feel like I'm gatekeeping it, and that's not cool.
Yeah, for sure. The moral injury didn't come up until, and I know we'll talk about my Chateau journey, but the moral injury didn't come up till later. I knew that impact, and I did some EMDR on it. I didn't really understand the and that's just 3, right? Did I give 3? That's just 3 that were of thousands. I don't know how many dozens and dozens of death notifications I had done. My first 3, a little over 3 years, I had 29 fatal crashes that I was involved in a 6-man assigned county. So, I was on most of theirs as well. So, I didn't have that same level of work, a volume when I transferred to Troop J, but at Troop L, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of crazy, ridiculous hard work. I did probably more in my 3 years there than most guys do in 20.
Do they teach how to give death notifications?
They do. Actually, we do. We actually have a psychologist that comes up and poses and puts you in scenarios. Both, I've had them all, and we used that later. I was actually got to be a part of building that program of saying you could have somebody take a swing at you, which I have. You could have somebody break down and cry. Now they have no means. You can't put them in a car and travel. So now you got to figure you're in charge of this person. Now I've got to get them to the hospital. So now they're going with me, or I'm going to get them a ride, get them a chaplain, get them a friend, get them a loved one. A lady said, "Oh, that's terrible. Would you like something to drink?" Invite you in for tea because they ingrained in them is this host duty, just all facets of it. I had a bicycle guy picked up a bicycle and threw it at me. We were standing out on his porch. I've had it a lot. So we do teach that now because that's a major part of our assist duties. We can have I already described one, which is out of state, these cross state boundaries. If you have a death notification in Nevada, they're calling Oklahoma High Patrol saying, hey, he lives in Enid. His parents live in Enid. Guess what? You're going to do a death notification in Enid. And you don't have any idea what happened, except what's on the printout that they gave you, and say, Courtney, your dad just got killed in a crash, and here's what I know.
We don't have that, right? The death notification training. I mean, I'd have to ask some of the homicide folks and the vehicle crime people, but not that I know of.
I would imagine they have some sort of something, but I've never heard of it.
I think it could be better.
Well, it formalized a process would probably make it a lot easier on everybody and understanding, like, hey, this is what could happen and this is what you should expect a little bit.
Well, I think you also should add at the end, how do we take care of the person giving the death notification after you give it? Because that's the cumulative effect too, right? That's what sticks with me. And so I don't think we talk about that to our guys either. We've normalized death notifications, and that also is not something normal that anybody should ever do.
I may be hitting you up for a formalized training. I think that I'm going to bring up to my superiors I know the vehicle crime, Dallas County has the most fatality accidents in the entire United States.
Yep.
And our vehicle crime folks, I see the calls come in. They're very stretched thin, and they do a lot of this, even as well as the homicide detectives. We have a big homicide force, and I have heard from them that giving death notifications is a lot way worse than actually working the actual homicide.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
No, I'm serious. I may get back with you on that and be more of your expertise helping Dallas PD.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I would probably just connect you with our training division. I know the captain up there over training really well, so I would probably just connect you with him and say, see if you can't tie in some of that connection. But the one thing I'll plug on that is you find these people who are really good at it. I turned out I was pretty good at it. So it's nothing more than just being empathetic towards, humanizing the recipient. So you have these really difficult conversations that you should lean into and say, hey, here's what's up. I have sat there and been a second chair to people who bumble and fumble through this conversation, and he's no longer here. What the fuck does that mean? Where is he? And so it's almost assumed that people know, as part of the training, Joe, that people, and some people just really struggle with it. So on the flip side of that, you have these people who are really good at it. I knew a guy back in it was in the late 90s, early 2000. He became known as the Grim Reaper because he was the death notification guy. Hundreds and hundreds of death notifications because he was good at it, number one, and two, he just was in a high activity county, and he became just really unfortunately involved in some of these, and it became it wasn't a joke. It was more levity of, hey, here's that guy. And back then I didn't know a lot about that. So now you think back, I've thought about him many times. Like, I wonder how he's doing. That
was my question.
Right? I mean, I don't know where he's at. I don't know, how he is. We weren't friends. I just knew who he was. I mean, we were acquaintances. We was never not a friend, but I don't want to seem like I didn't care for him. He was a great guy. I just don't know where he's at and how he's doing, because there is no doubt, to Courtney's point, there is no doubt that took an enormous toll on his life.
Of course. Yeah, he served a hell of a purpose that a lot of people don't want to have to do. It's like looking at not everybody wants to be part of a SWAT operation. Not everybody wants to do a death notification. That's probably most cops are really uncomfortable doing something like that.
Right. After you get a few under your belt and you find I didn't mind doing them. I wouldn't have preferred doing them, but I understood the importance and understood the gift that I had possessed with it.
Well, they don't bother you until they do, until you have a personal connection or something strikes you and it stays with you for months, years. In your case, I mean, so you just talked about many cases of exposure to trauma. How did you cope with that, or did not cope with it?
I did a lot of what I knew then was I knew physical activity played a part. So I was pretty physical, working out, running, lifting. I took more to running later simply because I knew it had a really positive. I didn't know the reasons behind it, but I knew kind of in my own organic way, this helps me. So I did a lot of running, and I'm talking like, I mean, I wasn't a marathon. Actually, I've tried to do 3 marathons and I've injured out of all of them. But I would go run on a day like today, which is probably going to be, what's it going to hit 100 today? I would go out in the afternoon. It was intentional. I would go out in the afternoon and run 5, 7, 9 miles.
Does it put extreme stress on your body?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yep. Just to, that theory of sweat it out. I didn't know much about cortisol back then, but I knew there was some tie-in or connection to punishing the body a little bit, suffering, of equating that to, working out my demons, working out my shit. And now I know that's probably, not as healthy. There's some pretty unhealthy aspects to, the punishing the body that is, therapeutically should be worked through in a different way, and then having a healthy way of exercise and facilitating that. The sweat is really good for you and getting rid of cortisol, but there's a mode here. Courtney's violently shaking her head up and down. Yeah, there's a but in and of itself, punishing yourself in exercise is pretty common theme for our community, especially SWAT guys. I got a bad call, so I'm gonna go in there and hit it for 3 hours, and that's not uncommon for us.
Again, you're basically reading my mail over here. It's kind of weird. While the end of my SWAT career and immediately after, exercise was not enjoyable.
Yeah.
It was 100% punishment. Like, I couldn't do a workout without overdoing it. And so that led to, I don't want to work out at all.
Right.
And then just recently, again, I've gotten back into, okay, I can exercise without trying to kill myself or without having to make up for whatever I did the day before, right? It's not, I had a problem with if I ate poorly, we're going to kill it tomorrow, right? You got to pay for that. And that was a horrible way of dealing with it. But you hear everybody, exercise is a great coping mechanism until you abuse yourself while you're working out. And that's exactly the road I was on. This is really weird. Like I'm looking at a mirror that doesn't look like me, and I'm like, huh.
Yeah,
this guy's saying everything about my life right now.
That's angry working out or punishment working out, which then that rolls into a whole another conversation. I don't know if you want to go there, but because I'm not an expert in it, but that rolls into a lot of hormone issues. So you got a whole lot of hormone dysfunction going on in your body that you're trying to keep up with and regulate that is not regulating correctly. I been there, done that. Whereas, I touched on cortisol, but you got all these things. You got guys now pumping testosterone in their veins because they got, their hormones are imbalanced. And part of that is a result of overindulging in something, exercise or alcohol or eating or adrenaline, and that's where retirement, a lot of my unraveling came in retirement. So you have this retirement piece where guys quit, and there's a lot of things you can blame on that, which is one of the first and foremost is this disconnect of this loss of being tied into an identity, an agency, camaraderie, comfort, purpose, value. So then you hit this pendulum swing of, up on a high, and the pendulum swing goes back to a depressive low. And there's a lot that happens a lot. It's part of why I believe, our suicide rate is really high in retirement, is because you have this, and it's not just the camaraderie and disconnect. It's truly sometimes a hormonal issue of depression and, hitting things hormonally that are dysfunctional. You can't stay to Kent's point, you can't stay at this high adrenaline level and not have a pendulum swing effect later. You just can't have it. It's very few and far between that can elevate, can operate at that. I mean, look at the military data. You can't operate at that high level and then not have some pretty significant result later.
Brad, I want to go ahead and get into we touched on it a little bit, and you and I have talked offline about this, and just so happened Kent and I just recorded a message from the wellness unit yesterday about demons in the bottle, and it is a big part of the first responder community. It always has been, and it's still a problem. There's more education out there on it, but it can never be talked about enough. Struggles, how people come back, and how some people sadly never recover from it and lose their career, lose their livelihood. And you went through that yourself.
I did. I am. That's not past tense. I don't battle it every day now. I live a great life now, knowing that alcohol is not my friend. That it is my enemy. I think to probably tee this up, I like golf metaphors. So if I were going to tee this up, I would use an illustration of. Have you heard the pickle analogy? Have you guys heard of this?
No.
So if you take a cucumber, how do you make a pickle? You take a cucumber and you put it in brine and you let it soak for a period of time. So every cucumber is uniquely different. Nobody really knows at any point when it becomes a pickle. They just know if you soak it in brine an extended period of time that it becomes a pickle. All cucumbers are uniquely different. Some will become a pickle in 6 months. Some take 8, some take 12. But once that pickle becomes pickled, it can no longer become a cucumber. That's the illustration I would use for an alcoholic. So you can drink for an extended amount of time, but at some point you're going to become an alcoholic. Alcoholism is going to take over, and you're never going back. It is not. You can't unpickle from the alcoholism. I've heard that. That's not my illustration. I heard that even before I succumbed to my own alcoholism. I heard that metaphor, and I often wondered. I wonder when I will become a pickle, even while I was drinking. So my drinking started. I said early on in the podcast, I didn't take my first drink until 18. I used to party with the guys, tag team guys. You go out on hard training op. You come back in that night and you drink. It was just no big deal. It was part of the community. It was part of the culture. And within our law enforcement culture nationally, we know it to be true. You can watch any television show. I love Blue Bloods as much as I love Blue Bloods. Almost every scene, especially when they're in the house, they're drinking Irish whiskey. I started drinking bourbon quietly. I was a bourbon sipper. I still, to this day, love the taste of bourbon. Bourbon and steak just go together. And just because I'm an alcoholic doesn't mean other people out there aren't. But I think hopefully from my story, you can use this as a cautionary moment to say, I wonder, and ask that question constantly and consistently. I wonder at what point I become a pickle. Through the latter part of my career, I would go home in the evenings and sip bourbon. And more towards the closer I got to my retirement, the more I would use alcohol for sleep. Now, when you're using alcohol for a certain something, and our excuse mostly in this community is we're using that to sleep, you already got a problem. You've already got a problem. And I'm going to shout out to the book, Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep book. If you're having trouble sleeping, figure that shit out. Don't use alcohol to do it. I stand on that soapbox pretty tall and loudly. There are a lot of things you can do to sleep. Matthew Walker's book says, or not his book, but I've seen a lot of his podcasts. I found him on Joe Rogan podcast, and I was naturally gravitated towards it. Sleep is we could spend probably a whole nother hour on sleep. But there's another book, Nick Kumalada's Excommunicated Warrior, who's a MARSOC guy. That's his big deal. He's like, figure your shit out so you can sleep. Matthew Walker says this is the greatest life hack known to man that nobody uses, is proper sleep. Within our community, 6 hours or less is pretty common. That's unacceptable. If you're 6 hours or less, you need to figure your shit out. So if I go back to sleep, or I go back to alcohol later in my career, I was like, I'll just use alcohol to sleep. And then the more you drink, the more I drink, personalize that. The more I drank, the more often I would wake up at like 3 a.m. 2 a.m. Like, why am I not sleeping? Well, that's part of the alcoholism that starts to take over, is that, okay, you're becoming dependent. Alcohol has an adverse effect to that. So I retired actually to, I retired in 2018, but in 2016, I started building a nonprofit organization that was solely devoted to peer support wellness. And that, when I retired in 2018, I retired to run that full time. That's actually how Courtney and I met, which I think was probably right in that time frame, like 17, 18, 19. I don't remember exactly. I could go back and look, and I think I have it in my pictures documented.
I think it's 2020, right after COVID, because we have masks on.
20. Oh, that's right.
Well, I think we met before that, and then we reunited in 2020.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I built a wellness peer support CISM based organization, national organization that did two things. We built peer support teams based upon the CISM model, and we responded to critical incidents, mass critical incidents that would be overwhelming to a team. So I would I sent teams to Louisiana, St. Louis, California, United States Capitol Police. I sent 7 teams up there after the feds pulled some of their teams out. I sent some teams up there. Line of duty deaths. St. Louis was a blue on blue line of duty death. I would send, and part of this nonprofit, I would fundraise in order to do this. And turns out I had a propensity for fundraising and marketing in that space. So I became a pretty successful entrepreneur in building a nonprofit. Well, bubbling underneath was this drinking thing. I would go kill it all day, and then I would come home in the evenings and, drink 2 or 3 pretty stiff drinks. I'm sitting here holding a 10-ounce coffee cup. I'd probably drink that whole thing worth of bourbon through the evening, or maybe even 2 of those. I would drink a lot. Through 2018, when I built this nonprofit business, that made it easier because I wasn't necessarily on call. I was a good little trooper because I didn't drink and drive. I didn't drink on duty. So I had all these check boxes that gave me permission in my mind to be able to do this. I'm not hurting anybody. I was killing my marriage, but I'm not hurting anybody. And hurting my relationships. By the way, I have a 28-year-old and a 30-year-old son. I have not said that yet. And my oldest son's married to an amazing woman, and they're going to have a baby in September, and I'm going to be a granddad. Whoop! I know, right?
Congratulations, granddad.
Watch out.
I was going to get to that. I was going to get it out of you.
Oh, okay, good. So, and my youngest son is engaged to an amazing. They have done really well. I have 2 really great boys, but I was hurting that relationship. I remember my oldest son, who was a Marine. He's got his own level of drinking. They train them well in that. But he came up to me one day. We were going out to eat, and he leaned over and he said, "You tied one on pretty good last night, huh?" He could smell it. That made it such an impression. I don't know that I'll ever forget that conversation. It was only one-sided. He just came up and said it, and he kind of nudged me and laughed and walked off.
How did that make you feel?
Like shit. So at this point, up to this point, I was internally, I was questioning myself already. I'm like, have I pickled myself? Have I done this? Have I gone too far? Can I stop? So I would stop myself for 30 days, 60 days, which is pretty common for alcoholics. You would say, see, it doesn't have control over me. And after 60 days, I'd pull in the
It's
liquor
always
store
about
and-
control.
Right?
Every time.
Oh, every time. I have control. I have complete control over this. I've got this killed. This doesn't own me. So I would quit for a while, but if I quit, I would binge. This was in retirement. This was when I'd retired and was running this business. But if I did quit, I would save them all up. I deserve this. I would convince myself of all these things. I deserve to take, a couple of days over the weekend and do some grilling and, not leave the house, sock myself in for a couple of days and finish off a couple bottles of bourbon, and I was good. But in 2019, actually, it wasn't too long after I retired. I retired January 31, 2018. It wasn't that long after I retired that life started getting really hard. It was a series of things that you can't really blame one thing. I just started getting kicked around. My ex, I'm no longer married. I was married to she's an amazing woman. She just didn't like me. The marriage itself, her health, my life, the only thing good I had going on was this business, and I was rocking it. Everything else, I was a life punching bag. I'd love to be able to blame something, but I can't really blame anything other than a lot of things just kicked around. Life circumstances started beating me up. So Kent's analogy of the cup getting squeezed, that was what happened. So you squeeze this cup and what's in your cup starts overflowing. My drinking started getting worse. The only thing good I had going on was this nonprofit, this peer support organization. And in 2020, we all know what happened in 2020. If you're a 501c3 that made it through 2020, you've done something, and we made it through. We made it through fundraising, however, externally, there was things going on in my life that just, my drinking got worse and worse and worse and worse. So by 2021, I would do these, these like 30-day, 60-day, and then I would go on these 3 and 4 day binges and blackout drinking. And it was bad. It was pretty bad. But the only person that knew it was my ex. She was like, this is terrible. It was terrible on her. It was terrible. Well, probably my kids knew it too. I'm sure my kids knew it. They were grown. I'd like to believe they didn't know it, but I'm sure they knew it. So then my dad gives me a call and says, how are you doing? I'm doing great. But he knew I wasn't, which he wasn't just a random call, how you doing kind of guy. He was a traditionalist. He was born in the 30s. So you don't ask those questions. You don't even have those conversations. That's a whole part of my growing up as well. You don't talk about that shit. So in 21, there was an intervention done on me, and I ended up going to Chateau, which is where I work now. So I went to Chateau because of drinking, but what ultimately happened at Chateau was I found that my values and beliefs, a lot of these things that we had already talked about, my values and beliefs have been damaged and wounded, and the railroad tracks that I wanted to be on were here, but I was somehow way over here on this other track. And I'm like, I don't know how I got over here. I don't know how. And it wasn't just drinking. It was what I believed of myself. It was what I believed spiritually. It was what I believed. A lot of my belief structures. There's an organization called Arbinger Institute, which is, they have a book called Leadership and Self-Betrayal, which really resonated with me. You don't think of us as betrayers. Like that's a a crazy word, but internally you start to betray your internal belief systems and belief structures, unknowingly, just like the military guy, the military veteran, story that I told. And then at my core, they helped me understand that my adoption played an enormous part into this people pleasing, this compliance piece of living my life as to get along. I was really good at this. I didn't realize the depth of impact that adoption had on me, and Chateau had an enormous part to play in unpacking that. So I spent 32 days at Chateau working on drinking. Supposedly, I went there to work on drinking, and what I ended up working on was a career and a lifetime of values and beliefs, and it was absolutely amazing. I tell people all the time, and which Chateau's a residential treatment center. People like to say it's inpatient. It is not, because we get a little confused on the inpatient piece.
Where is it located?
It's in Midway, Utah, which is right outside of Salt Lake. For those of that have any geographical reference, Park City, Utah, it's about 15, 20 minutes south of Park City. It's beautiful, up in the Wasatch Mountains. It's a first responder facility vetted by National FOP. It's one of 7 FOP vetted facilities in the United States. Amazing place, amazing team. Pretty unique. I know this is not a Chateau sell, but I'll talk about it because it played an enormous part in me, and that's why I do what I do now. I'm very idealistic in nature. I have to believe passionately in what I do for work, and I believe 100% they can heal people that actually believe they can't be healed. We do it all the time.
Well, I know I want you to talk about Chateau because we have recently sent some people that way, and they're doing amazingly. The best that I've seen, the best version I've seen of these people is after they went through Chateau.
I was actually texting one of them last night that just said, "Hey, I'm going to be in town any chance," and no, I'm working, but it is an amazing place. The residential piece part of it is it has a more like a feel of a bed and breakfast, but you're there all day every day working on mental health. And when I like to say that you're just working on yourself. You're taking a time out of your life to just go spend a little bit of time on working and hitting a hard reset on your life and giving yourself a second chance. In fact, I often talk about this entire world would be well served, especially this nation, to take 30 days and just work on their own kindness and mental health. Everybody would do a whole lot better of just, let's take a hard reset, everybody. We're just I don't want to get into a political or societal conversation, but man, everybody's just wound tight. But specific to our first responder and veteran population, we serve it really well. I spent, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no.
So I spent 32 days there. But while I was there, so the organization I built, and Get Sober. So let me kind of finish that line of thought. I get sober there, but it's not just a physical alcohol sobriety that happens there. It is a mental and emotional. It's the start of a mental and emotional and spiritual sobriety that I live out today. That is absolutely amazing. It's almost a collateral effect of being alcohol sober. The real sobriety is my inner peace. The real sobriety is my mental and emotional health. The real sobriety is the spiritual.
Because they go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. We want to think that we can divide them off and block them off, but they are not just overlapping; they're intertwined. They're all intertwined. So when I'm at Chateau, the part of my story, when I tell my story, people think, "Oh, this is going to get better." Actually, no, it gets darker. It gets worse. So at this point, the business itself that I had built, while I was 2 weeks at Chateau, the business does a panic decision. They didn't realize how much I was drinking, so they make a panic decision, and their CEO has PTSD and is drinking ridiculously, so they fire me. They disconnect from me my second week at Chateau. So that becomes its own hurdle and burden, and the blessing of that for me is that I was actually there and I could work through that. My ex-wife actually was employed for them as well. The board had independently hired her because of life kicking us around thing, had hired her as a part-time contractor to do some things. Well, they fired me 2 weeks there. My third week there, they fired her. So they said, we don't want anything to do with either one of you. We want to be separated from you. We want nothing to do with either one of you. And from there, they called people all over the country and said, don't have anything to do with this guy. So I was a national presenter, national instructor, not just CISM, but wellness, relationship all over the country. And they called people all over the country and said, don't have anything to do with them. So there's a level of betrayal occurring there that is pretty substantial. So when I leave, did you have a question? Sorry.
No, I'm
so when I leave at the 32-day mark, really still naively thinking, okay, maybe I've gotten bad information. Maybe I'm not hearing this correctly. No, it's spot on. They want nothing to do with me. So when I come back to the world from this amazing place, things get really, really dark. Really, really dark. So I've been abandoned by a core group of people that I thought were my friends. I've been abandoned by, I've been disconnected and terminated from an organization that I built. And I reached out to him actually and said, hey, we're not doing good. I even sent a text message and no answer. This is what you're supposed to do, right? I knew what the game was. So I'm like, I'm not doing well at all. And they didn't answer it. It was a group thread with a couple of clinicians, some peer support people that I worked with very closely, and they're like, deuces. They just didn't respond. I used to keep the screenshots of this, but so I went into a really dark place. And at this point,
how so?
So I felt guilt from I had worked through some shame at Chateau, but all that came back. The guilt and shame of drinking, the guilt and shame of the damage that I had done to this group of people, my family, my extended family. It was bad. It was a really dark place.
It was back to abandonment.
So everything about what I believed as a childhood, as an adopted kid, was coming true. I thought that is not true, but at that time I thought that was what was being lived out. And it was an intense, not just an emotional pain at that point. It was a very physical, visceral, acute pain every minute of every day. No sleeping, no job, no income. All the problems that had come at me were still present. I was still trying to work through and navigate. And now, not only had I lost a career, I'd lost a dream. I lost a marriage. I mean, whatever space my marriage was in at the time, I won't blame. I get that I was a terrible husband on some levels. I don't want to minimize that. But whatever chance my marriage had at that point was over. She was feeling the same pain. She was feeling the same rejection, betrayal, and it was all my fault. And for the most part, I was encumbering that. It was my fault. So I would sit there and look at my Glock and I'm like, that's a really good option. That's a really good option. That's about the only option I got anymore. I don't see a way out. When you're in that dark space, you just really don't see, you're missing value, you're missing worth, you're missing, options, you're missing hope, you're missing, an enormous amount of, and I was completely disconnected. I didn't feel like I could call my dad and say, here's what's up. That was not going to go well. There was no way I was calling my two boys. That's not an option. I don't want them to ever see their dad in this space. And my ex, that communication at best was fiery. At worst, it was just zero. It was, I hate everything about you, on both sides, really.
You had also lost the tool that you were using to numb out the pain.
Yes, and I'm trying to be physically sober from alcohol.
And we're trying to feel feelings we've never felt before.
That's one of the things that, great point, Courtney, that Chateau actually helps teach you and identify these emotions and what they are. So now I'm doing a great job of putting labels to these. I'm sad. I'm hurting. I'm in pain. I'm killing that. Like, thanks, Chateau.
But
This
then what
really
do you do
hurts.
with it?
This really hurts a lot. And so I attribute a guy named Travis. Shout out to Travis. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He and I'd known each other. This is a true spiritual thing. He and I'd known each other along probably several years at this point. He was, I think at the time, he was like 9 years sober. PTSD, attempted suicide, the whole story. Ridiculously awesome Marine vet. And he just randomly reached out to me, said, "Hey, how you doing?" And in that moment, I chose that to actually get really honest and say, I'm just not doing good. And I don't know why him. Maybe it was because he threw me a lifeline. I have no idea, but I'm really glad I did, because he called me up randomly. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm not doing good at all." It's actually more colorful language, but I said, "I'm not doing good at all. And he said, "I'll be by in 10 minutes. And he drove to my house, and we sat there and talked for a while. And he said, "What are you doing for this? Let's talk about sobriety." And I said, my insurance didn't pay for IOP or therapy, post-therapy services, which is somewhat ridiculous, but okay. So I was going to white knuckle this thing on my own, with the rejection of, I actually was looking for a therapist. I knew the value of therapists, but they were all connected. All the therapists that I knew were connected to this organization, and they'd been told not to talk to me. They had been told not to have anything to do with me. It took me a little bit to figure this out. A good friend of mine, there were a handful of people across the United States that stuck with me that never left my side. I can quote them to you. I know exactly who those people are. Most of the people, it wasn't they rejected me. It was that they were saying, well, if they're telling me not to, I don't want to get involved. I see it. I get it. Or they just didn't know the depths of hell that I was in, of how bad it actually was. So when Travis reached out to me, he said, "We're going to AA." And I said, "I am not going to AA. That is not happening." He said, "I didn't ask. We're going to AA, and there's a meeting tonight. I'm going to take you to AA meeting." And he's an AA guy. Fast forward, I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm an AA fanatic. I know you're not supposed to actually say, if you're listening to this, I know you're not supposed to say AA. 12-step recovery program. The left tradition says you're not supposed to actually speak openly of AA, but for cops, we're uniquely almost drilled in our heads, never go to an AA meeting, and I'm going to tell you right now, it will save your life. I just had this conversation with a...
Can you say that louder to our people?
It will save your life. It absolutely will save your life. It will change your life. So I would love to take an opportunity just to say that here, kind of what it did for me. But I go to my couple AA meetings, but where I landed was, especially the first one he took me to was where I stayed. It was 7 guys. We were coming out of COVID, and so AA was kind of snowballing back into a start. 7 guys in that room. 5 of them were felons. 4 of them have served hard time. Now, just let that soak in for a minute.
And Brad.
And me. This cop, this fucked up cop, retired cop who still works in the business. And they couldn't give 2 shits that I was a cop. They welcomed me in. They loved on me. Matter of fact, one of them had a real, pretty negative internal narrative of cops. He is probably one of my closest friends today. But they the grace that they gave me was unbelievable. And I still hit AA meetings when I travel. Joe, I was out in LA recently, hit a meeting out there in Santa Clarita that was absolutely amazing. And they're like, what do you do? I was, well, I'm a retired cop. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I did prison here. You ever heard of that? I'm like, but oddly enough, I met an LAPD officer at a meeting that I attended out there. I've met different because it's not any different, right? You're sitting across the room, and I'm looking at Ken. I'm like, that's a cop. That's a cop. You're sitting across the AA room, and that's how I met the LAPD guy. I met a police officer in Terre Haute, Indiana, like that. Looking at him like, you're a cop. And he said the same thing. He said, I could tell you had law enforcement written all over you. So we're in these rooms, but getting cops in the AA room is pretty hard. So the steps themselves, now I'm going to back up here and remind the listeners, I'm carrying an inordinate amount of pain and betrayal. And I do what every good cop does. I want to inflict the most pain on them possible. I want to burn their lives down. And that is my mission in life. Get back on my feet, and I am going to terrorize them for what they have done to my life and my ex's life. Now, what AA did for me was absolutely amazing. It gave me hope. Working the steps, I had no other option. I worked the steps of AA diligently, which is a self-reflection. You get right with God, get right with yourself. And I realized and recognized all the things that I had done to my life. That's one of the great things about it, about that program, is you realize, holy cow, here I'm responsible for about 99% of this. I'm responsible for 90%, whatever. And that gives way to actually looking at the totality of your life and stepping back. And within the steps, what my God gave me was the ability to forgive. I had no inclination of forgiving. I had no desire. I had no even ability. But working that program gave me forgiveness for those people that was unmatched, which this is really a story to any. Administrative betrayal is a pretty common theme in our community all across. It doesn't matter if you're in Texas, you're in Dallas, Texas, or Oklahoma City, Jacksonville, Florida, or Los Angeles. Administrative betrayal is a pretty common theme through the nature of difficult decisions being made or just shitty decisions being made. So I sat there and am faced with this decision of, do I want to keep going in this non-forgiveness phase, which I use the metaphor of not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and wanting them to be affected by it. That's how not forgiveness works. So God actually granted me the ability to forgive, and the peace and serenity that I have today are because of that program. 100% because of that program. Not because they deserve it. I ended up doing one of the things that AA is well known for is the amends. I ended up doing amends with anybody in that organization that would answer the phone. Most of them didn't, but a couple of them did. There's no way possible I could have done that without this forgiveness, inner peace journey.
Did you forgive yourself first, or did you focus on them first?
Myself. That's part of the program, and part of that too was the planting of seeds that Chateau did for me. Their common theme is give yourself grace, learn how to love yourself. I know that sounds pretty foo-foo-y, but this is something we don't do and don't have conversations about enough. Is can you give yourself grace in this moment? And we all make mistakes. That's part of it, because but can you actually look and say, okay, I'm square. I've tackled that. Let's do better next time. That grace piece was, such a great point, that actually looking and saying, I'm okay. Which foundationally, the reason I can say that is my relationships with my kids is amazing, which is part of this, having these really tough conversations. Here's where Dad was at. Here's where Dad wasn't at. Here's what he had going on. And to be able to look people in the eye. One of the things that about AA is the promises is that you can look people in the eye and have these conversations with people. So yeah, great point. So I went on to pretty much concede that I would never be back in law enforcement or the wellness community. Pretty much like, hey, I'm out. I did my time. I saved a lot of lives. I impacted a lot of lives. I know that. I don't need anybody's endorsement or pat on the back for that. I just know I did a lot of great work. And a buddy of mine called and asked me if I'd be interested in returning back to the community. I'm like, I don't think so. I kind of did my time. Part of it was the shame and guilt of really looking and being honest with myself and saying, have I really? Am I scared to come back? What kind of guilt am I going to have? What kind of reception am I going to have? I was in a really, really good place. I was working really hard. I worked really hard. I had no other option. The only other option was the Glock on the table. And so as I grow and I get healthier, and my mind, my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health starts to grow and culminate, then Chateau calls and asks if I would come work for them. I'm like, that's something I could get behind. They wanted me to develop a training program for them, do some business development, which is what I did at my nonprofit business. I think I would love being back in this community. Did not realize how much fear, trepidation I would have with being received back in this community until I went to FOP Wellness Conference, my first FOP Wellness Conference. I showed up there, and the anxiety that I had from how I was going to be received was tangible. Like I could almost taste it. It was that heavy. And but I knew I had done a lot of hard work. I was in the space for the right reasons. It's all about motivation. And there was a lady named Gabrielle Sofati. She's a research psychologist out of John Jay University in New York. I had known her for several years. I got to meet. Listen, Joe, I got to meet so many cool people. I am blessed to be able to know so many cool people across the country, like Courtney. Just meeting these random people that are just awesome, well, I hate to pat you on the back right to your face, but you are awesome. But I got to meet a lot of these cool people, but Gabrielle worded out. It's a pretty small community, this wellness community across the nation. It's a pretty small community, especially people that are doing good work. You just get known, and their stories get known. So my story was out there with the help of the people who had called up, said he's been bad, he went to treatment and don't have anything to do with him. So I didn't know kind of what some of the narrative was out there, and some of the narrative gets worse. I mean, you don't have to have facts in law enforcement community. You just have supposition, and then gossip runs with it, and that's what they did, some of it. But Gabrielle sees me at this FOP from across the room and lets out a yell and runs over and gives me a big hug and tells me, I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're back, and I see how hard you worked. And that message, Joe, was unbelievably powerful for me. And it said everything I needed to hear at that moment to say, this is what this community is about. This right here is what you trip and fall down, you get back up, and the people in it receive you back and say, good job. And then their last message was, keep going. We need you in this space. Gabrielle's an amazing human being. So from there, I've never looked back. Like this is the space I'm in. I have a story to tell that is some of this you just can't even make up. It's that ridiculous of how awful some of it. I mean, there's a lot more details to how awful that organization treated me, but it's irrelevant. If I want to be on the path of which many in our community are, I want to stay on that path of hating them. They don't care. They don't care. They couldn't give two. Obviously, they couldn't give two shits about me. That becomes, again, they use that illustration, that becomes a poison you drink yourself, and expecting somebody else to be harmed by it, and it just eats us up. So thematically, I knew that forgiveness piece, I'd taught this, but to have to walk through it and live it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I can only thank God for actually helping me and guiding me and giving me the power to say, I forgive you. It doesn't change the facts. It doesn't change. It doesn't change the pain. There's still days where I'm like, that bugs me. That bugs me a lot. It's really hurt. It makes me sad. There's days where I'm really saddened by what happened. I'm saddened by what their lives turned out to be. I'm like, how do you actually do that to somebody you call a friend? Again, that happens in a fleeting second. So if you combine AA and Chateau, this Arbinger piece, Arbinger has one of the internal things about Arbinger that Chateau, you learn at Chateau, is to humanize people and just really see people for where they're at and look at life through their lens for a minute. So I was actually able to humanize these people and to see, I see how and why they did that. I don't agree with it, but given their personality and their nature, I see how that happened, which is still, again, it's not approval or disapproval. We get into this theme in law enforcement. Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, but we get into this theme of right or wrong or good or bad or black or white. And man, we just miss a whole lot of gray of people just messing up or making mistakes, or we just miss a lot. And especially in this this betrayal piece, we like to say, good or bad or win or lose. It's a lot more complicated than that. Oftentimes, I was able to. The point of this is I was able to humanize them, and I could see why they made the decision. They were embarrassed. They were embarrassed that this drinking, it's my fault. I'm the one that was a drinker. So I can't actually look at the totality of this and say it's all their fault. I mean, I had a huge part to play in driving them to make really the decisions that they made.
Well, that's a lens for us in this first responder community that's not natural to have. We just don't have that. Like you said, we see such the awful side of humanity. You see it for decades, and then when you experience that in your own kind of personal life and mission, it's really hard to develop that lens to look at things differently. And for the forgiveness piece is huge. And you're right, they don't give a shit.
Yeah. And
we have people all the time that leave an organization after 2-3 decades. Fuck this place. I'm leaving. I'm retiring. I say this all the time. DPD has been here since 1881. The walls still stand. When I leave out of this building, I leave out of this wellness unit, when Kent leaves, and if you're leaving despite somebody else, they don't give two shits.
Yeah, you're only hurting yourself.
You're only hurting yourself.
And I tell folks a lot in that space that, you signed up for a job and they paid you for a job. Anything over that is on you. And we're take a SWAT guy. You've invested hours and hours of time, effort, and energy to an organization. They're just giving you a paycheck, man. That's all they're doing. All the above and all the everything else they give was really all on you. It is hard to hear, and it's hard to park in your brain because most of us are very idealistic in nature. Well, I gave all of this. I gave all of this to you. What have you given me back? A paycheck. That's what you signed up for, and benefits and insurance and all that. But that's what you get. All the rest of it is a matter of perspective. What you did get in return was camaraderie and great relationships and thematically great stories. Every dude's got to love a great story. You got great stories. You got, depending on where you focused your time and attention, you got great relationships or not. And that's part of that book I mentioned with Nick Kumalatis. That's where he's talking about this excommunicated warrior. What have you lost? That was thematically, if I look back over the years of 2018 to 2021, my life, I know now, through the help of some great therapists, I know that was an inordinate amount of loss. I was having to navigate, and it was grief and sadness. I was having to navigate an inordinate amount of loss over about 4 years' time that just absolutely crushed me. And my coping skills at that point were really good, but it used them all up, it depleted them, and my go-to coping skill was drinking. And that became my primary coping skill for navigating all that, and it cost me big. Cost me big.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we arm anybody with coping skills going in. You know, we don't have those conversations of what coping skills are you going to need to get through a 20 or 30 year career of seeing a lot of shit you're not supposed to see. And so the go-to is, what do I have readily available to me? Is it, killing myself in the gym because I want to punish myself to get rid of all of the other internal pain that I have? Or is it the alcohol that I have readily available? Or is it the extramarital relationships because people are always throwing ourselves at each other? And there's hurt people hurt other people, right?
Yes.
And so I think because of that, we naturally are drawn to people that live in the space that we're at. And if that's another relationship that understands where I'm at, that's where we go. And so I think that that's really where we have failed the first responders, is we have to arm you up front. We arm you with all the tactical skills, right? We teach you all the de-escalation and how to grapple and how to shoot and how to do all of this, but we don't teach you how to protect your mind from the things that we're expecting you to go into. And so there has to be a lot of grace, I think, for yourselves in that space, because you didn't know what you were getting into.
It's like a moth to the flame.
Yeah.
With us in this community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or another one's the boiling frog, the frog in the boiling water. Mm-hmm. Just over time, you're like, it's weird. It's getting hotter.
Yeah.
And, I could not agree with you more. I really think there's components of a career that of a guy from even 15 years, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, that those guys, if I back up from that here, my clinical director, Ben Pearson, he talks all the time about tell your story. Tell your story. There's so much nuggets of truth and wisdom posed in a story of these golden opportunities to say, this is when I really was struggling, and here's what I did. And those moments are, well, have you tried this? Or that's a great option. I'm going to try that myself. Have you talked to Courtney? Maybe I should go have that conversation. Or all these little tiny moments. And most of our stories are consumed with machismo of, I kicked this guy's ass, or I did this, or, I've been there, done that. I've done all of that. The more difficult stories that I find to tell are these, where I say, and I love telling this story, not because I need validation. Fuck that. I don't need that. This story is about hope. This story is about redemption. This story is about forgiveness. Anybody that drills down and says, man, they wounded you. Yeah, they did. But what did I do? What did I do to make sure that I'm going to live a long life of joy, of peace, of serenity? And do I want to be around those people? Absolutely not. They are going to live they've got their own burdens with their decisions. They got to live with that shit. That is not on me. However, in the meantime, I'm going to live a life of peace intentionally, because now I've tasted it. I'm like, I want this all the time. I don't know that I have a peace now, Joe, that I don't think I ever had before. I have never felt this at peace with myself, even in my career, even when things were going great. I have never felt this. Now my friend circle is pretty small. I know who my friends are, and those people are loyal motherfuckers. There's a group of people that stood around me in that space. There was 5 of them all across the United States. One in Florida, one of them, there was a couple down here in Texas, the Bustos. I don't know if you know them, but the lady out of Dallas, Texas, or I'm sorry, Denver, Colorado, and a guy out of Dothan, Alabama. Those guys were calling, checking on. Well, I don't care what they say about you. I love you, and I'm checking on you every day. Yeah. But none of the people it's amazing how powerful embarrassment is. Now think about that. As administrators, think about how powerful the decisions are being made surrounded by optics. And that's what that was. That whole thing was about optics. My life wasn't worth the negative optics that they were going to get. So it's okay. That's how I live my life now. That's where I'm at in the space. And, yeah, that's my story, man.
No, it's an amazing story, and I thank you for sharing it. And I think the listeners are really going to. I think it's going to hit home for a lot of people because this is like a big, multi-layered onion that we just went through career and struggles and pain and suffering, but it leads to who you are now. So I have a final question. There are many people out there in the same boat. Some with the tides are much calmer, and then there's a lot that are out there that are a lot worse, and they're in the middle of that darkness. What would you say to first responder, non-first responder that's out there that's struggling? What can they do to find this peace that you have?
So I would offer, sorry, I didn't mean to start with the negative. I would offer up that they need to get connected. The most powerful way to get through this is to stay connected, and that's through an honest conversation. I'm not talking about just going and sitting next to somebody. I'm talking about really getting honest and transparent with somebody about, hey, I think I have a problem, or I think I'm drinking too much. What do you think, Courtney? I think I'm drinking too much. What do you think? And actually listening to that. I can tell you in my drinking days, I wouldn't hear any of that. Although internally I was asking myself, I wonder when I'm going to be a pickle. I heard that metaphor years ago. And I always, in the back of my mind, I wonder, am I a pickle yet? Am I a pickle yet? So if you're in this and you're asking that question, you need to have this conversation with somebody. You need to have a conversation with somebody about, what do you think? What do you really think of my drinking? What does it look like? What do you really think of how I'm doing? And then actually shut up and listen to that feedback from a trusted friend to say, here's what I think. Like Travis, whoever your Travis is, you need to have Travis show up and say, man, you're not doing good. You're drinking too much. Your life's out of balance. You're running your family off. You're an asshole. So then you can say, if you've got a friend like that, there's a lot of, listen to Rogan or Jocko or Goggins or Chris Williamson, Jay Shetty. All these people say you need to have that guy or gal in your corner. And if you don't, you're in trouble. You're in deep shit. To answer your question, my advice to you would be find that person and get really honest with them and say, I'm hurting. I'm not doing good. I'm sad. I'm whatever, emotion. Just get really honest with, this isn't about tough. If you're in this community, we already know you're tough. We just really have this idea that we need to keep up this tough facade. And, okay, I get it. You're tough. I'm tough. I know I'm tough. I've been in fights. I've been in all kind of crazy shit. I already know I'm tough. I don't have to prove that. Now there's a tear in me, internal tear, that says you need to keep that facade up, but it's detrimental to your health. The real strength and the real courage is calling Kent up and saying, hey man, I need a minute with you, and really having this conversation about how am I doing? How do you think I'm doing? In making sure Kent's your guy. From there, it could go any number of ways, but at least you've started having a moment a real truth human moment of getting vulnerable and saying, I'm going to take an honest assessment and I'm going to hear Kent out. I'm going to hear him out of what he thinks.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, and I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. I'll never give up on you. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up.